It's breathtaking.
When you
Let's
see
start.
sand here, imagine water. If you dive in, you can't reach the bottom.
You dive in.
Yes, it's called swimming.
I don't believe you. In the shadows
Any kind of a magical tone here.
lie many secrets. But the darkest of them all may remain. The end of House Atreides.
What's going on
My
there?
father didn't believe in revenge.
Soundtrack's pretty good. It's like almost cheesy, but
What if Paul Atreides was
not
still
quite
alive?
there, you know? Some interesting color schemes going on there.
Have you ever had a dream about your first ride?
Don't try to impress anyone. You're brave, we all know that. Be simple. Be direct.
Not looking good right here.
Nothing fancy.
I understand. Nothing fancy.
Their expressions are so bewildered.
You will never lose me, Paul Atreides. We gave them something to hope for.
May thy knife chip and shatter.
I feel like that could be a better stance there, you know, but it's pretty solid. That title sequence is pretty awesome right there, I will tell you that. Nice. Cool. Hey there, it's Nathan, and that was a new Dune Part 2 trailer that's out right now, and I just wanted to share some thoughts about it and kind of Dune overall. So just kind of a brief Dune Part 1 review. I think overall it was very well done. You know, it seemed very close to being a masterpiece. There may have just been maybe one or so piece missing to kind of, you know, really get it there. I think it did spend a good amount of time kind of on the battles and kind of the fight sequences, and it kind of got there pretty quickly in the movie. Kind of over character and world building and kind of the mysticism. I do feel like the movie could have explored kind of more themes from the novel. You know, it did stay kind of surface level. And, you know, not necessarily or specifically in terms of, you know, what I talk about later on, but, you know, just going deeper kind of reduce audience. You know, do moviegoers kind of prefer a more surface level experience? It does seem like most big films kind of seem to stay more at the surface. And, you know, these big films, you know, by its nature, you know, it does reach a lot of people. You know, a lot of people are watching these films. I have heard, though, that you know, this film has been a challenge, you know, just to get onto the big screen. The atmosphere, I do think atmosphere is very important, but, you know, subtle. You know, it can really make a huge difference in films and, you know, experiences overall. It can really set films apart. You know, I think modern films seem to kind of be lacking this feeling of atmosphere or immersion. You know, before you were kind of in the film, you were in the experience. Now it kind of feels more like you're watching it. You know, you're watching a film. I think there is kind of a subtle difference there. The vast desert, you know, is it dull or awe-inspiring? You know, I'm not really sure myself. I think it kind of depends on the movie and what transpires in this setting. I think other movies that have done really well with this setting have, you know, been movies like Lawrence of Arabia and Mad Max. The music, I do strongly feel that the music and soundtrack can really impact the atmosphere and overall effect. I do think Hans Zimmer is one of the masters of his craft, and does really set the tone for whatever movie he's working on. I also think kind of the film as well, kind of having a grandeur about the movie can really help out his soundtracks as well. Kind of the perception of his music to make sure that it's perceived as being magnificent. The acting, Timothée Chalamet. I think he's pretty solid. I think he's pretty good. He doesn't seem to have too much of an arrogance about him, and he kind of has kind of a thoughtfulness about him too, which is pretty cool. So I do think he's a pretty good fit, for the role, and I can see him having a future in the industry. I do think there are some nuances of acting, kind of what I've been told and kind of what I've seen. I think there can be overacting, wooden acting, and arrogant acting. The great actors seem to find a sweet spot with this. I do think a lot of actors kind of humble with age. I can think of some good examples of this, and others I'm not completely sure, but I think for the most part.
I don't think it's a truck at all. I think we just found a transformer.
Also, I think having depth as an actor can really make an effect. Although real life experiences can seem to help with this and assist with this, but it may not be completely necessary. Establishment in Hollywood. I do think the experience does seem to differ greatly for those that are established in this part of the industry and those that aren't. It does kind of seem like the same personnel kind of in most movies. For many of these people, there's a reason why they continue to find work and get projects, but there are certain circumstances that seem to go a little too far. Some more parody in Hollywood could be beneficial, at least to the point where it doesn't feel just like a bunch of elites. Because I do feel like the Oscars, for example. I think there was a time when it was more respected, much more respected. But now it doesn't seem that way. So the story, I think layering and intricacy, can lead to a more engaging story and a more immersive world. I do think having source material really seems to help out with this, and to really help out when crafting films and kind of building the world. And just naturally, feels more alive and immersive. Coming of age, it does kind of seem to be one of the main themes being explored here, but it does seem a little tired, as this theme does seem to be explored quite a bit, and many times before. Almost seems like the safe route, especially when the novel Dune seems to have so many other aspects to it. Dune does seem to blend many multiple genres, which does kind of set it apart as well. Splitting up movies into multiple parts, it does seem to be happening more often, kind of with the main goal being just make more money and profits. It can really have an effect on the storytelling. I think many stories are kind of meant to be told at more of a deliberate pace as opposed to being drawn out. I think it can depend on the story. I think it can work this way, and it has worked, but there are other circumstances where it doesn't seem to work. The characters, there are some interesting dynamics between the characters here. I think Paul and his mother. This is an interesting one. As usually, it seems like young men, want to break away from their mothers and parents, but Paul and his mother seem to kind of share a close and a mutual connection. Paul and Shawnee, this is another intriguing dynamic, as their connection seems to kind of have a little more meaning and depth associated with it, which does seem to kind of have become somewhat of a rarity in today's society. Mysticism. This definitely does add layering, but at least in the movie, seemed to kind of show the same sequence every time. It may have benefited kind of with more variety. And the resolution to the dream sequences or visions wasn't as grand as I thought it was going to be.
I don't believe you're the Lisan al-Gaib. But I want you to die with honor.
But, this could be deliberate as well. And, I think it may not resonate as well with modern day audiences. So some of these other themes that could be explored, I think, rebellion or a revolution, kind of how rebellions can inspire and create purpose. necessary elements for a rebellion, when a rebellion is needed. It kind of cycles, kind of the cyclical nature of all this, and if there's a way to break the cycle and just get to a better world. How empires can fall is another theme here, which, could be from arrogance, complacency, slow decay, and I have read that there are some parallels here with Dune to the Roman Empire. And hey, there could be some parallels to today as well, even with our own United States. Another theme are resources, kind of this battle for resources, how often at least a conflict and war, and kind of the parallels to our world here as well. And prophecy. I think there can be some dangers to prophecy. In many of these stories, it can really get into the character's head and, even drive them insane, and also, although Paul, maybe prophesized to lead his people to a better life, he still goes through steps and hardships along his journey. In our world, there may not be, prophecies kind of in that sense, but, I think there are similarities. I think there can be certain things like assuming that you're meant to win or achieve something, whether it's you as a person or kind of as a group collective. So you don't prepare, or, don't prepare as hard, stop practicing, or to continuing to take steps to improve. So they're kind of like underestimating your opponent, or the difficulty, and hey, you end up losing or not achieving the goal. Another similarity here could be assuming a positive outcome, or predicting that something is going to happen or meant to happen, or hey, even that you're entitled to it, so you don't really do much to kind of work towards it or attempt to achieve it. And sometimes without you even knowing it, it slowly starts to fall further away. Because I do think there's kind of an unpredictability around the world around us, so I think that's something to be aware of. I think there's an unpredictability about predictions. I think it can go the other way as well, feeling like you've been dealt a hand in life that you can't get out of, assuming that things are going to be the way they are as well, negatively. So you don't do anything about it or just accept it. How much of the future is already laid out or in the cards? And how much of the future is in our own hands? I'll even venture here as well and finish with this. Do each of us have some sort of purpose, a plan, something we're supposed to do, similar to that which is told in Dune? And how does one go about achieving this purpose? And, is it even necessary to have a purpose, or is it okay just to make strides to be the best person you can be? Well, it may just be different for every one of us.